G.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وقال في صدر رسالته إنكم سألتم أن أذكر لكم الحديث التي في كتاب.
Okay, وقال في صدر رسالته. Who's قال? Abu Dawud. Yeah. So Abu Dawud, isn't it? What was it? No, Abu Dawud. Go on. So, remember, so he's written this book now, and people want a sort of introduction to this book. They want some sort of insight into how this book works. So go on.
إنكم سألتم أن أذكر لكم الأحاديث التي في كتاب السنن هي أصح ما عرفت في الباب ووقفت على جميع ما ذكرتم فاعلموا أنه كذلك كله إلا أن يكون قد روي من وجهين صحيحين.
Yeah. So look at how you have to remember when he wrote this. This is a type of Usool hadith, isn't it? His Risala is one of the earliest Usool hadith examples that we have. So he says, okay, he says, هي أصح ما عرفت في الله وقفت على فاعلموا أنه كذلك كله, all of it is that صح إلا أن يكون قد روي من وجهين صحيحين. Except sometimes what tends to happen is I come across a hadith, two hadith, both hadith are sahih. فأحدهما أقدم إسنادا, one is more preferred with regards to its sanad, والآخر صاحبه قدم في الحفظ. But the other one, the narrators of the hadith are better in memory. So one أقدم إسنادا, yeah, is more preferred when it comes to its sanad wise is stronger. But the other one, when it comes to individual narrators, their memory is stronger. فهما كتبت كذلك في الحفظ فهما كتبت كذلك. Yeah, so I wrote that down at that. ولا أرى في كتابي من هذا 10 أحاديث. In other words, in my entire book, I only find in my book about 10 hadith that fall under this. ولم أكتب في الباب إلا حديثا أو حديثين. And every chapter I only write one hadith or two hadith. وإن كان في الباب أحاديث صحاح لأنه يكثر. Even though there might be multiple ahadith out there, I don't want to mention them, yeah, because it's just going to make the book extremely long, and that wasn't my aim. وقال وليس في كتاب السنن الذي صنفته عن رجل متروك الحديث. In my entire book, there is no hadith out there which is matruk al-hadith. Yeah, no. So what does matruk al-hadith mean? Yeah, matruk al-hadith. One is al-hadith al-matruk. One is matruk al-hadith. Yeah, so the matruk generally refers to someone whose hadith is he's da'if and he goes against someone who is strong. Yeah. So matruk al-hadith. Sorry, no, that's munkar al-hadith. Matruk al-hadith is this. Is a narrator who was accused of lying outside of hadith. Yeah, this is, I got confused with the munkar al-hadith. So look, if a narrator is caught lying about a hadith, he was red-handed caught, he made a fabricated hadith, he's called mawdu'. All his hadith are rejected. If a narrator is caught lying in his lifetime, maybe lying about breakfast, lying at work, lying at the doctor's, lying in the supermarket, then his hadith will be matruk. It's a lesser status than mawdu', but all his hadith are rejected. So any hadith he's narrated, they're all rejected. Because he's accused of lying. If a person lies, he's going to get, he's going to have people accusing him of lying in hadith as well. So this is why, in my entire books, Abu Dawud, there is no matruk al-hadith shay. وَإِذَا كَانَ فِي hadith munkar, that's the one. If there is a hadith munkar, meaning if there is a hadith which goes against stronger narrations, so da'if, munkar can also refer to shadh as well. بَيَّنْتُ أَنَّهُ munkar, I'll say it's munkar. وَلَيْسَ عَلَى نَحْوِهِ فِي الْبَابِ غَيْرُهُ. And like that, there is no other hadith like that. Go on.
وقال أيضا وما كان في كتابي من حديث فيه وهن شديد فقد
Yeah, if there is a hadith which has a very big problem in there, wahan shadid means du'af shadid. I'll explain it. But remember, even though he's saying the hadith is da'if, shadid, right? It's not matruk though, he's saying. So what is he trying to say about da'if shadid hadith? Is it acceptable? Huh? To a degree it's acceptable, isn't it? So go on.
وفيه ما لا يصح سنده وما لم
Yeah, ما لا يصح سنده. There are those hadith inside this book whose sanad is not valid, not sahih. Well, so in other words, the sanad is not sahih, but the matan is sahih. Because remember, what I told you before, the books of hadith were written when? A couple of 100 years after the demise of the Prophet ﷺ. And then before that, in that interim period, what did you have? You had fuqaha who were establishing the fiqh, who were compiling fiqh. So fiqh was established way before hadith was written down. So when these books of hadith were compiled, Imam Abu Dawud, Imam Tirmidhi, Imam Bukhari, Imam Muslim even, they knew what fiqh was out there. Their aim was not to rewrite fiqh again. Their aim was to take fiqh like a colouring book, and then take the, like when you colour in a colouring book, the image is all there, isn't it? You just colour in the bits. So they were just adding hadith onto this masla, adding onto this masla. So they weren't establishing fiqh from the hadith, they were supporting the fiqh with the hadith. See the difference? Yeah. So this is why Imam Abu Dawud doesn't really mind if a hadith is, as long as it's not mawdu or matruk, he doesn't really mind, he'll bring in his book, because he knows this fiqh is also already established. Okay, فهو صالح وما لم أذكر فيه شيء. If I don't mention anything about a particular hadith, then assume it to be salih. It's reliable. وبعضها أصح من بعض. Yes, some of the hadith in my book are more asah than others. But does that really matter? Doesn't really, because his aim is not to compile all hadith of one standard category. وهذا لو وضعه غيري لقلت أنا فيه أكثر. وهذا لو وضعه غيري, if someone else had done this, had placed this besides me, لقلت أنا فيه أكثر. أنا فيه أكثر, I am the one who has done more. وهو كتاب لا يرد عليك سنة عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بإسناد صالح إلا وهي فيه. This is such a book in which no sunnah will ever come to you بإسناد صالحا outside this book, except you'll find in this book some sort of example for it. ولا أعلم شيئا بعد القرآن ألزم للناس أن يتعلموا من هذا الكتاب. After learning the Quran, I don't know any other book that students or people should learn besides after this. He's actually got a point, very good point he's got, because what is he teaching people? He's teaching people two things. He's teaching people fiqh, and he's teaching people about how hadith is used. Yeah. So this is why. And look at this. Remember I told you before. The early fuqaha, why didn't they do this for? Weren't the early fuqaha, the Sahaba, the Tabi'in, Taba Tabi'in, weren't they better than everyone else after them? Khair al-Qurun, isn't it? So we can't say that, okay, that the later scholars, they wrote the book, oh, they did such an amazing job. How come no one wrote a Bukhari before that? What was wrong with them? You can't say that, because that doesn't make sense. So what we have to understand from this is that when this concept of fiqh came about, the dalils that they used were very strong dalils. Later on, when Imam Shafi rahimahullah came, Imam Shafi, he began to revise fiqh from a different angle now. So now he began to look at it through hadith. So that's why the concept of Usool fiqh and Usool hadith started to become developed from Imam Shafi's Risala. Now, the problem with this was, I was actually speaking to someone, Salman Yunus, who was a scholar, we had this ulama meeting on Saturday, and I was mentioning this to him about, what do you think of the effect of hadith on the Hanafi madhab has had? Because if you think about it, in the early years, in the early Hanafi school, fiqh was just in the form of text. It was textual, which was the common way to compile fiqh. Yeah, common way to compile fiqh was like that in the early days. Yeah, and before Muwatta, I'm saying, Imam Umar ibn Khattab, when he used to write letters to people, his fiqh was in there. No dalil, nothing, just mention what the fiqh was. So this was the way. So therefore, when hadith came now, what started to happen is, like, people began to take the fiqh and began to, like, add in hadith into it. Okay, filling gaps with hadith, filling gaps. What's the problem with that?
There might be another region or some other reason which get that reading, but it may not fit perfectly.
Yeah, it won't fit perfectly. Because what you're assuming is that, wait a minute, these fuqaha didn't see this hadith, and that's why I need to fit this hadith into this fiqh collection. That's the first problem. And the second problem is this: wait a minute, if these fuqaha came 50 or 60 years or 70 years before the compilers of hadith, isn't it possible that a hadith at their time, which was of a high sanad, of a high level of acceptability, when it reached them, it became da'if because of the narrators that came after them? Isn't that possible? That's possible as well. So, and the also other problem is, we assume that we know all the usool from their books, through which we can apply it to hadith directly, which is wrong. We don't know all the usool. We try and find the usool, we're trying to still find the usool. Does that make sense? So this is why they had this merger of now people later on who weren't obviously as strong as the early scholars in fiqh, because they were the founders of the madhab. They were obviously going to be the most knowledgeable about it. Now, if we had a time machine, take hold of Bukhari back to Imam Hanifa and to Imam Muhammad and say, okay, can you check through this and see how much of this will fit in with the madhab and how much of this you haven't taken and why you haven't taken it? That's another story. Make sense? So I spoke to him about this, and he was saying that, there is an issue now. But the problem is, how can we can't just divorce hadith from fiqh now, because it's just become fused with our fiqh. Hidayah quotes it all the time, hadith. Imam Sarakhsi quotes it. Imam Ibn Humam quotes it. So what do? So we just got that's maybe the way fiqh evolved. Have you got that? Okay, go on.
وإذا نظر فيه وتدبره وتفهمه حينئذ يعلم مقداره ولقد صدق.
Yeah, so he goes, look. So he goes, if you look at this, إذا نظر فيه وتدبر وتفهمه حينئذ يعلم. A person will only realize the true value of Abu Dawud when a person studies fiqh at a great level, then comes back to Abu Dawud, then he realizes, oh, look at Abu Dawud, guys, indicating towards different things by bringing hadith.
ولقد صدق رحمه الله فيما قال وكان أفقه الستة ولذا يذكر.
Yeah, so Sheikh Abdul Rashid Omani was saying, Sadaqa, he's spoken the truth. He was actually the most afqah out of the six. Even Bukhari is saying that. It's a big statement, that is. Imam Abu Dawud was a stronger faqih than Imam Bukhari. Go on.
ولذا يذكره الشيرازي في طبقات الفقهاء دون غيره.
So Imam Shirazi has mentioned in Tabaqat al-Fuqaha, and he hasn't mentioned the other five. He's mentioned him. Go on.
دون غيره من أصحاب الأصول واختياره هذا منهج أيضا من فقه.
Yeah, so this manhaj, in other words, before he compiled this book, it wasn't like, some random kind of guy just coming and like collecting hadith and just putting it all to chart. No, he actually thought about this very thoroughly when he compiled his book. Lots of thought went into it, lots of research went into it. That's why he's saying selection of the hadith was done من فقه.
رضي الله عنه رضا الأبرار وقد ورزق هذا الكتاب القبول من أئمة أهل العلم من جميع الطوائف.
Yeah, everyone has accepted it, because this is a book that works for every madhab, because it's got daleels for every madhab in there. That's why if you want to look for daleels of the Hanafi madhab, look at Abu Dawud, look at Musnad Ahmad, look at Musannaf Ibn Abi Shayba, and Musannaf Abdul Razak. Yeah, you look at these books and you'll find lots and lots of daleels to support. Go on.
فنرى الإمام المجتهد الجصاص أبا بكر الرازي في تصانيفه كأن أحاديث أبي داود على طرف لسانه.
Yeah, على طرف لسانه means it was rolling off his tongue. He had memorized it, because this was like a support for the madhab, because when later people came, they began to question, where did you get this fiqh masala from? What's the dalil for this fiqh masala? So the later Hanafis, they began to find a hadith to fit onto the fiqh masalas. Go on.
وقال الإمام الخطابي في معالم السنن واعلموا رحمكم الله.
So Imam al-Khattabi.
واعلموا رحمكم الله أن كتاب سنن أبي داود كتاب شريف لم يصنف في علم الدين مثله وقد رزق القبول من الناس كافة فصار حكما بين
حكما.
فصار
So it became a hakam, it became an arbitrator between firaq al-ulama, all the groups. This is like the book that they all come back to. وَطَبَقَاتِ الْفُقَهَا. Bukhari is not like that. So Bukhari is not a fiqh book that every madhab can come back to. Yes. طَبَقَاتِ الْفُقَهَا عَلَى اخْتِلَافِ مَذَاهِبِهِمْ فلكل فيه ورد منه ورد ومنه شرب. Warada means like, to come to a lake to drink from. Everyone has drunk from this lake, this book. وعليه معول أهل العراق. معول means dependency. Yeah. So عول يعول, to be dependent. So the أهل العراق, أهل مصر, وبلاد المغرب, yeah, all of them have depended upon this. وكثير من مدن أقطار الأرض, and many cities of the earth. فأما أهل خراسان فقد أولى أكثرهم بكتاب محمد بن إسماعيل. As for the people of Khurasan, they've actually held fast to Muhammad ibn Ismail's book and Muslim's book. Look at this, what is saying? See, this is an important point to highlight. And our teacher, Shaykh Abdul Halim Chisti, when he was teaching us Nukhbat al-Fiqh, he mentioned in Nukhbat al-Fiqh, Imam Ibn Hajar said that Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim's book was a book that was accepted all over the world. Mashriq wal Maghrib. And he says, the problem there, because it was only accepted all over the world many hundreds of years later. Initially, it was only accepted in the Khurasan localities, because around the world other books were more famous. Yeah, like the Muslim was more famous in certain parts, and some parts Abu Dawud was more famous. So this is a good point. They says أكثرهم Khurasan were focused on Muhammad Ismail and Muslim ibn Hajjaj's book. ومن نحى نحوهما في جمع الصحيح على شرطهما في السبك والانتقاد. So sabk means like to test, انتقاد means to criticize. إلا أن كتاب أبي داود أحسن وصفا. Abu Dawud's book is much better than those in its description. وأكثر فقها. وكتاب أبي عيسى أيضا حسن. والله يغفر لجماعة من الله forgive all of them. ويحسن على جميع النية فيما سعوا له, and may Allah Ta'ala be kind to their nice intentions according to their efforts. له مثوبتهم برحمته. So
قلت وللناس فيما يعشقون مذاهب.
Yeah, so قلت للناس فيما يعشقون مذاهب. So this is like a poem, PowerPoint. Yeah, and so anyway, the whole point of bringing this is to show, look, everyone likes their own kind of approach. Yeah, so whatever approach you're into, you're gonna like a particular book. So those people who are into kind of looking at sanads and these things, they're like Bukhari and Muslim better. Those people who are into fiqh, they're like Abu Dawud and Tirmidhi better. That's what I say. Go on.
فأما الفقهاء فعندهم للأحاديث المشاهير وما جرى عليها العمل شأن وإن كان في إسنادها مقال. قال السيوطي في التعقبات.
Okay, look. أما الفقهاء فعندهم للأحاديث المشاهير. They have hadith mashahir. وما جرى عليها العمل شأن. They've got their own way of dealing with these hadith. Yeah, hadith which are practiced by people, Sahaba, Tabi'in. They've got their own way of grading them. وإن كان في إسنادها مقال, even if they're da'if, like we've seen in Tirmidhi, didn't we? Hadith will be da'if, ليس له إسناد, or ليس بإسناد قائم. But then you say, وعليه عمل أكثر الفقهاء. Yeah, مقال. So this is why this concept that some people have, which is, if it's not in Bukhari, if it's not in Muslim, then it's da'if. Right? And if Imam Tirmidhi says that this is da'if, that he can't take it. No, it doesn't mean that. He's got his own approach to the book.
قال السيوطي في التعقبات على الموضوعات بعد ذكر حديث حنش وهو ضعيف عن ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما من جمع بين الصلاتين من غير عذر فقد أتى بابا من الكبائر.
Yeah, so look, بعد ذكر حديث حنش وهو ضعيف عن ابن عباس رضي الله عنه قال whoever combines two salats without any excuse فقد أتى بابا من الكبائر. He's come to one of the doors of kabira sins. Look at what he says. أخرجه ترمذي وقال, what did he say? وَالْعَمَلُ عَلَى هَذَا الْحَدِيثِ عِنْدَ أَهْلِ الْعِلْمِ. All of Ahl al-Ilm act upon this hadith. But it's da'if though. So, does everyone understand what he's trying to get at? What he's trying to say?
The fiqh is greater than the hadith.
No. Fiqh is greater than the hadith. The fiqh is given preference. Yeah, and the hadith is not there to establish fiqh from the hadith. The hadith is therefore just supporting. That's what it is. Okay, go on.
أخرجت قال العلماء على هذا الحديث عند أهل العلم فأشار بذلك لأن الحديث اعتضد بقول أهل العلم وقد صرح غير واحد بأن من دليل صحة الحديث قول أهل العلم به وإن لم يكن له إسناد يعتمد على مثله.
Everyone understand that? So this is why this book is very important. See, this book, very, very important book this is. And this is a book, if you had just read it just like that, you probably wouldn't have appreciated every point that he's making. Yeah, so every sentence has got lots of beneficial things inside of it. So go on.
وقال السخاوي في فتح المغيث بشرح ألفية الحديث وكذا إذا تلقت الأمة الضعيفة بالقبول.
Look at this. So Imam Sakhawi, Imam Sakhawi is contemporary of Imam Suyuti. Okay, so he was also a very knowledgeable scholar. In Fath al-Mughith, this is the Sharh of Alfiyat al-Hadith. So in there he says, when the Ummah, meaning when scholars, they accept a da'if hadith, but they all unanimously accept it. They all say, this hadith, they practice it. That practicing of a da'if hadith is what? It's a sign of qabul, that the hadith is valid, authentic. يعمل به ويؤمل به على الصحيح حتى أنه ينزل منزلة المتواتر. A da'if hadith that's practiced by the early Sahaba and Fuqaha can have the same status as tawatur. But the hadith itself is not the mutawatir issue. What's the mutawatir issue? Being accepted. The concept being accepted. So the difference. في أنه ينسخ المقطوع به. So much so that you can actually do nasakh of a qat'i text with this. ولهذا قال وأما الرواة النقلة. As for the narrators who transmit الذين يسردون الحديث سردا, who narrate hadith one after the other من دون تفقه فيه, without thinking about the meaning of the hadith, ولا تدبر فقصارى همهم okay. So ولهذا قال الشافعي رحمه الله تعالى في حديث لا وصية لوارث. Imam Shafi says لا يثبته أهل الحديث. أهل الحديث say this hadith is ضعيف. ولكن العامة, however the majority of scholars تلقته بالقبول, have accepted this hadith as قبول. وعملوا به حتى جعلوه ناسخا لآية الوصية. And they've used this as what? Abrogation for كتب عليكم إذا حضر أحدكم الموت إن ترك خير الوصية. So the ayah has been abrogated by a da'if hadith. No, not da'if hadith, but mutawatir. وأما الرواة النقل الذين يسردون الحديث. As for those narrators who pass down hadith without any tafaqquh, understanding of the hadith, فقصارى همهم, the pinnacle of their efforts is what? صحة الإسناد. That's all they're looking for. It's like an art. It becomes an art. Hadith collection actually became an art, just like people collect, other things. All they wanted was the pristine kind of form. فإذا صح الإسناد. So when an isnad is sahih, لا يوازيه عندهم شيء. Nothing else can be compared to it. وإن كان الحديث شاذا. Even though hadith may شاذ. كما قدمنا قول الحاكم والذهبي في هذا الباب. We got that? Okay, go.
وما أبو عيسى الترمذي فهو أيضا قد سلك طريقا.
Okay, actually we'll stop there. Ya Allah. So, see, very important things that he mentions. Very interesting points. Because a lot of times, if you don't understand what he's saying here, you can become extremely confused about why we don't follow like all of Bukhari. Why is it that Bukhari and Muslim and these books are not taught to people? And because the aim of Bukhari and Muslim is not to derive fiqh from there. It was something else. And Abu Dawood's a very good book to teach. Very good book, because it teaches people fiqh, what practice was. It opens them up to how people used to practice things. So these are very good books to teach people, to study, to go over time and time again, go over it, so you can see the dalail as well. Any questions, guys? Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. More questions? Ya Allah.
How do we understand the place of fiqh and hadith if we take into as you said, we've got it in this form now where we've got fiqh and we've got the hadith embedded in it to say this is the support that we give. But classically, fiqh didn't include those hadith. Today I guess we have to take it the form that we've got it. We can't separate the
That's
two.
what I'm saying. That's why I said you can't divorce hadith from fiqh now. It's too hard because it's fused together. So imagine if there was no hadith transmission and fiqh continued as it was, just a pure form of fiqh that was continuing from the early days. It would have taken a different course. The way we look at Masail, like for example, you might get a hadith about a particular issue which the early fuqaha did not even discuss because maybe it wasn't an issue at their time. But because someone's brought, like for example, trousers below the ankles, you don't find this in the books of fiqh. In the early books of fiqh, you find in the later ones because the later ones were the ones that saw the hadith and had to find an answer for it. They felt as though, look, we have to try and answer this. So even though the masla is that trousers below the ankles is makruh tanzihi, it's not haram if it's not done with arrogance. So this is why now you've got this hadith. Now they try to explain this hadith. Does that make sense? So this is why sometimes one issue it might be in the community because of one particular hadith or a certain type of hadith that people are trying to. But that's the beauty of fiqh. What fiqh does, it doesn't sometimes take into consideration a hadith if that hadith goes against the bulk of fiqh or what the fiqh is saying.
But are there many instances where the fiqh takes the lead, like we've just studied now? We've got a hadith and it's regarded as da'if, but based on the practice, it superseded the
hadith supersedes the fiqh.
No, the fiqh supersedes the sihah of the hadith. So we don't take. So we've taken it in that one example.
Look,
we've just done.
Sihah of hadith, from what I said to you before, Sihah of hadith is all to do with the sanad, that's all. Yeah, Adil, Dabit, Ghair Shadh, Ghair Mu'allal, and Muttasil. This is the Sihah of hadith. This has nothing to do with fiqh. Because fuqaha will accept a hadith if the hadith is generally accepted by the Sahaba. If the Sahaba accept a hadith, even though the chain's broken, like Mursal hadith, isn't it broken? Why don't we accept it? We accept it. So we know in fiqh, our usool in approaching a hadith is totally different from what later scholars have laid down, because the later scholars have laid it down according to the Shafi approach. Imam Shafi, when he codified usool hadith, usool fiqh in his Risala, he paved the way for a new way of looking at hadith, of validating hadith. So that's why he was the first person. Remember, Abu Dawud says the first person to talk about mursal was Imam Abdullah ibn Idris al-Shafi. Idris, was it? Imam Shafi. Muhammad Idris al-Shafi. Jazakallah khair. So you see that? This is why you can look into this as well, research it as well, about Imam Shafi. You can write something on it, of how Imam Shafi's Risala had an effect on later fuqaha, how Imam Bukhari's book had an effect on some fuqaha, how this approach of usul fiqh that we have, usul hadith that we have, how that had an effect, how the usul fiqh of the Shafis, the mutakallimin, had an effect on Hanafi fiqh. You can see all as you go through. So this is why you'll see certain Hanafis have different approaches in certain things. Some will take a particular thing because they're more inclined towards hadith approach. Some won't. Some will say, no, even though the hadith is there, we take the fiqh.
So nowadays if someone's giving a ruling in Hanafi madhab anyway, would you say if that ruling has been given in the fiqh books and there's a hadith which goes against that ruling, then nowadays would you say it's okay to give the ruling according to fiqh, as long as besides that, as you mentioned, the travelling was it woman, then you have to apply the context to it. But if there's no context difference, would you say they still give ruling according to the fiqh, or would they have to take into consideration the hadith?
You would take the fiqh, because look, fiqh isn't something which is totally mutually exclusive from hadith. No, they overlap. Remember, every single hadith, we don't know the context it was said in. We don't know who it was said to. We don't know why it was said. We don't know when it was said. Fiqh we do. We understand fiqh more accurately than we understand, because hadith is a raw material. So the fuqaha, when they looked at hadith, they didn't just look at what was said in the hadith and just take that. They actually looked at the implementation of the hadith like a jigsaw puzzle. You see one piece of a jigsaw puzzle, it's got 100 pieces. The fuqaha actually tried to figure out what are the other 99 pieces and then fit it in the right place. That's what they done. So when we see that one piece, sometimes we can't figure out why are the fuqaha saying this for? Because they were looking at multiple things. Yeah. I guess.